So let's take a look at everything you need to know about defending the body against invasion of pathogens. This video is going to cover everything you need to know for combined science and for triple science and for higher and foundation tier. Make sure you give the video a like and subscribe so you don't miss any of the important videos you need for your revision so that you can ace your summer exams. So, how does the body defend itself against pathogens? Well, remember, those pathogens are microorganisms that cause disease. Bacteria are producing toxins, viruses are invading and replicating inside the host cells. Now, in order to cause the disease, they need to get inside the body. So, the first thing we need to understand is this idea of infection. An infection is when the pathogen has made its way inside the body. Usually we could probably think about into the bloodstream and then it's going to spread throughout the rest of the body. The body has a few defenses to protect against the infection to begin with. This is our primary defense or our non-specific defenses. Our first example of a non-specific defense is the skin. The skin acts as a physical barrier. The skin is an impermeable barrier. It's also waterproof, and it also produces antimicrobial chemicals. These antimicrobial chemicals, like the sebum, the oil on your skin, helps to kill any microorganisms. Now, if the skin is damaged and there is a cut perhaps, that is going to expose the inside of the body. Pathogens could enter through that cut and get into the bloodstream. So how does the body defend itself? Well, it forms scabs. And again, these scabs act as physical barriers over cuts. Platelets are involved in the clotting of the blood, and as the blood clots on the outside as an exposed to the air, it dries out, forming the scab. Other examples of defenses are chemical defenses. A good example of a chemical defense are tears. The reason that tears are chemical defenses are because that the tears contain enzymes. And these enzymes will break down and destroy any microbial cells. They will break down and destroy microbial cells. Our next example of a non-specific defense is our nose. Now, our nose contains hairs, and the hairs will trap larger particles as well as pathogens too. So larger things like dust particles and pathogens. If something passes through the nose and passes into our respiratory system, it is going to pass through our trachea. Now, the trachea has a couple of adaptations. The first one is that the trachea is lined with mucus. Now, mucus is a sticky substance which will trap any pathogens. They will get stuck in the mucus. But if those pathogens remain in the mucus, well, that could start to cause problems. So the mucus needs to be moved. And so the cells lining the trachea have cilia. Now, cilia are small hair-like structures on the surface of the cells that move the mucus. And what it's going to do is move the mucus to the back of the throat. And once it gets to the back of the throat, it then passes down into our stomach. This is an unconscious process that is happening all of the time. Now, some diseases like cystic fibrosis, which produce extra thick mucus, the cilia are unable to move that mucus. And this means that the pathogens remain within the trachea, and that then might lead to infection. If the mucus passes into the stomach is also adapted to kill those pathogens, and perhaps any pathogens that might be in any contaminated food or contaminated water. The stomach contains stomach acid. This stomach acid is hydrochloric acid. And hydrochloric acid is a very, very low pH acid, around pH 2. What this acid is going to do is it's going to destroy any microorganism. Those might be microorganisms that are in our food, but also in our mucus. Now, all of these primary defenses are described as non-specific defenses because it doesn't matter what pathogen it is, it doesn't matter what species, it doesn't matter what type of pathogen, these non-specific defenses will stop or will attempt to stop all of them. Our specific defense is our immune system. Now, the immune system is made up of two main parts. Our first part are one type of white blood cell called our lymphocytes. Now, lymphocytes is a term that we only need to know in triple science. In combined science, we can just refer to them as white blood cells. Now, these lymphocytes produce a couple of different things. The lymphocytes, firstly, will produce antibodies. Now, these antibodies are special proteins that will bind to markers on the surface of the pathogen. These markers on the surface of the pathogen we call antigens. Every species of pathogen, in fact, every type of cell, will have specific protein markers on its surface, a little bit like the colour shirt of a football team. This allows the immune system to recognize these pathogens. If the immune system has come across these pathogens before, it is going to be ready to defend itself and produce antibodies very rapidly. This is known as immunity. If it hasn't come across that pathogen before, then it takes time in order to prepare that defense, and this is when we might feel unwell and we might be infected. The lymphocytes will also produce antitoxins. The antitoxins are also proteins that bind to and neutralize the toxins made by bacteria. These toxins made by the bacteria, they are what make us sick. So the lymphocytes produce these antitoxins that neutralize them, removing them from the blood. The second type of cell and the third way that the immune system responds are the phagocytes. Phagocytes are another type of white blood cell, and these will engulf, that means consume, and destroy the microorganism. The phagocytes contain enzymes within it that will break down and destroy that microorganism. We could say digest the microorganism because the enzymes are involved, but often I find that leads to confusion and people start thinking that the small intestine is involved. So I tend to say engulf and destroy the microorganism, and this will always get you marks in the exam. Now, if the body has already been infected with a pathogen, it will be able to produce a more rapid response the second time. This is immunity, and so the person does not become infected. Let's talk about how this comes about. Well, the first time the body is attacked by the pathogen, the white blood cells, WBC, they will produce antibodies to bind to those antigens on the pathogen and mark the pathogen for destruction, and antitoxins. They will also become memory cells. Now, these memory cells will remain in the blood for a very long period of time. Sometimes it might be months, sometimes it might be years even. These memory cells, they are then able to recognize the pathogens. The antigens on those pathogens, they are like the team colors that a football team wears. The memory cells will recognize those markers and be able to respond more rapidly. So the second time that the body is attacked by a virus or other pathogen, the memory cells recognize the antigens and respond rapidly. Now, the response varies in three main ways. As we can see in our graph here, the antibodies that are being made, we can see that more antibodies are produced in the secondary response. We can also see that the antibodies are produced faster. And we can see that the level of antibodies remains greater for longer. Because we have this faster production, this larger production, and this longer production of antibodies, this means that the pathogen is very rapidly recognized and is destroyed, meaning that it doesn't get a chance to replicate and therefore doesn't get a chance to make us ill or infect us. And if it doesn't get a chance to replicate, it also means that it doesn't spread from one individual to another. The ideas of immunity also underpin the ideas of vaccination, and that's what I'm going to be breaking down in my next video. So make sure you give this video a like, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it.